one of the thoughts around events was, getting people to talk about paying it forward. It's not a subject that's easy to broach, internally, or so just making that, the onboarding, the on-ramp just simpler to understand what's going on in our city. Of course, we see in certain segments of the town, depending on where you are, people in the street, homeless, some of the consequences of, Quebec winter, of migration, of all kinds of challenges. But one of the amazing things of Centech that also they do that we should mention is they really do have a map and almost a radar of where the needs are to make sure that when they are allocating across the agencies, it really is material and it's going to have an impact. It's another sort of their value add. And then also just this coaching and best practices from one agency to another to really raise the efficiency of what's delivered. And I think, again, TechAide, we've kind of created a forum in a very approachable way, through the events to sort of raise the awareness, to make it easy to talk about. Because there's something that it's not obvious, but I do think there's maybe a sort of duty to give back because it's our city. And, it was one of the things we've talked about a lot when, if many of us are visiting San Francisco and we just see the scale of the issues there. And you just do not want to let your city succumb to that. And if there's anything we can do to contribute to, the quality of life of our city where we want to live and grow our companies, I think it's a really important thing that we can do. And as you said, Sophie, it's kind of just making that an easier, more efficient, because obviously entrepreneurs and their teams are incredibly busy just trying to build, the next great thing. But I think a lot of them also want to know that they are doing something in the process for their community and for the city and for giving back. So.
Yeah, and one thing adding to that I've realized is talking to my family, about the values of giving back and what we should give. There's topics that always come back, and one of them is local. And I think, like Alan mentioned it, but it's very important. Like, we live here, we love our city, we're building value here. And Centraide Montréal, when you contribute to their activities, it's really, really local. And we do have issues here. There's issues elsewhere in the world, obviously, that you might want to contribute to, but this is like where we live and what we cherish. And to me, the other point that Alan said, also, I think also is very important, is they know where the needs are. Like, sometimes we see stuff, but there's so many things we don't see. Like the last agency I visited, it was like a revelation for me. Centraide has this house that they bought. So it's in Hochelaga Maisonneuve. It's a house they bought, and it's to host fathers and their kids that are homeless. And I didn't know it existed, and I thought nobody would have thought of that, but they know, because there's a lot of agency taking care of female, because sometimes they have other issues, with violence and having a child and everything. But there's actually fathers that cannot see their kids because they don't have a home. And then they lose connection with their kids, and it creates so many other issues. And sometimes it's immigrants, sometimes it's people that, for whatever reason ended up in the street. And I visited the dad, and I saw like the dads with the kids, and they telling us the story that sometimes after 3 months, they help them, they find a place, and they reconnect with their kids. And it's such a great story long term. So that's a tiny example, but it's something I would have never thought of, as a problem that you need to solve. And they're the only ones that do that. It's the only house in Montreal where they can do that if you're, you want somewhere that you can go for a weekend with your kids, so you can show that you're stable and you're kind of allowed to have a relationship with your kid as a I would say a father in transit, if we can call it that way. But a lot of examples like that, so they know where the issues are.
Yeah, I think, like you both mentioned, we don't live in a bubble, right? This notion of local and communities is actually quite important, despite the remote world that we sometimes tend to be accustomed to, like we are on this call today. But it's like you wake up, you're in a physical environment, and like I said, we're lucky that, like, I found myself like, it wasn't this like master plan. Oh, I want to work in tech and grow in it. It's like just like kind of like I fell into it right at the right time. So yeah, there's this notion of like, hey, you're lucky. Maybe you should also think about the people that aren't as lucky, right? That grew up in different circumstances, you think just being born in Montreal, you're already like part of the, 10% of the world, versus like being born in Syria or some other war-torn country. So this notion of luck, I think, creates a duty. At least that's how I see it. And then maybe in terms of like thinking, going back to a tech company. So like, Alan, what would be ways for companies to be involved with TechAide, right? So what would be the 1, 2, 3 if you had to pitch them, right? Like here's what you need to do to be able to participate, give back. Because like you said, Centech has this view on all the issues, right? So what an easy on-ramp to be able to to create an impact without having to figure out your own, hey, what's important for us? Is like, hey, there's this great organization called Centech that's already doing it. As always, thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe. If you want to learn more, check out thepnr.com.